He told me he loved me that morning, like he always did. His voice was warm, familiar, soft around the edges. "I love you. Text me when you get to work." I remember smiling into the phone, half awake, hair a mess, brushing my teeth. "I will. I love you too." There was no hesitation, no distance, no weird energy, just normal. And that's the part that still messes with me. Because if he had sounded different, if he had been colder, if there had been tension, maybe I would have braced myself. Maybe my body wouldn't have shattered the way it did. By 6:42 p.m., I didn't exist anymore. That's what it felt like. I was standing in my kitchen when the message came through. "I can't do this anymore." At first, I genuinely thought he meant work. He'd been stressed about a project, so I replied casually, "Do what?" 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. And that was the moment. This relationship. I'm done. I felt something drop inside me, like an elevator cable snapping. What? Where is this coming from? No answer. I called him. Straight to voicemail. I called again. Blocked. I checked Instagram. Blocked. Facebook. Blocked. Even LinkedIn. Blocked. I stared at my phone for so long my vision blurred. I thought it was a glitch. I refreshed, restarted my phone, logged out and back in. Nothing. It wasn't a mistake. He erased me. The man who kissed my forehead that morning, the man who said, "We're okay," the man who knew I was already barely holding it together. And then my chest tightened, not metaphorically, physically, like someone had wrapped barbed wire around my lungs. I slid down the cabinet to the floor. My hands went numb. I couldn't inhale properly. I remember thinking, this is how people die. The paramedics later called it an acute panic response. The ER doctor said, severe emotional trigger. All I could think was, he promised we would talk. Because before the block went through, one more message slipped in. "I just need space. We'll have a proper conversation soon." Soon. I held on to that word like it was oxygen. Soon. That was 3 weeks ago. Tonight, I sent him a message through someone else, and now I'm waiting. Again. If you've ever been blindsided, if someone you trusted switched off like a light, if you've ever stared at your phone waiting for a message that never came, you're not dramatic, you're not weak, and you're not crazy. On this channel, we tell the stories people whisper to their friends at 2 a.m., the humiliating ones, the confusing ones, the ones where the ending doesn't make sense. Because sometimes the worst breakups aren't explosive, they're silent. If you've ever been discarded instead of communicated with, stay with me. This story isn't about revenge, it's about awakening. I met him when I was 31. I wasn't naive anymore. I had already done the chaotic love in my 20s, the push-pull, the jealousy games, the late-night emotional roller coasters. I didn't want that anymore. I wanted stable. He felt stable. We met through mutual friends at a birthday dinner. He sat across from me and listened more than he talked. When he did speak, it was measured, grounded. That word kept coming to mind. Grounded. At the end of the night, he walked me to my car. "I'd really like to see you again," he said, looking directly at me. No smirk, no ego, just direct. And I remember thinking, this feels adult. Our first few months were easy, effortless. He texted good morning every day. He remembered small details, brought me my favorite sparkling water without asking. One night, 3 months in, we were cooking dinner in my apartment, music playing softly. He wrapped his arms around me from behind and said, "I don't date casually. If I'm with someone, I'm serious." My stomach flipped. "I'm serious too," I said. He nodded like that was enough. And for a while, it was. He met my friends, came to my sister's birthday, talked about future trips. He'd say things like, when we live together, when we're older, when we have more space. It wasn't forced. It felt natural. The first red flag wasn't loud. It was quiet. Whenever I got emotional, he shut down. If I cried, he'd stiffen slightly. If I asked, "Are we okay?" he'd sigh softly. "You overthink." That phrase became common. "You overthink." Maybe I did, but I also felt shifts, small ones, like when my job became unstable and I started spiraling a little. He was supportive at first, then tired. One night I broke down after a stressful call with my boss. "I'm scared," I admitted. He sat next to me but didn't touch me. "I don't know how to fix this." "I'm not asking you to fix it," I said quietly. "Just sit with me." He stayed, but emotionally, he felt miles away. Still, every morning, "I love you." Every night, "Good night, I'm here." So when my anxiety increased, I blamed myself. I thought maybe I was too heavy, too intense, too much. He never said those words, but sometimes what someone doesn't say is louder. The last week before he left, he seemed normal. We watched a movie Friday night, ordered Thai food. He fell asleep with his hand on my leg. Saturday morning, he made coffee. Sunday, we grocery shopped. Nothing felt broken. That's what makes the discard feel violent. There was no visible crack. Monday morning, he kissed my forehead. "I love you." And by Monday night, I was erased. The hospital smells like antiseptic and artificial calm. That's the first thing I remember clearly. Not the ambulance ride, not the paramedic asking me to breathe slowly, not my neighbor standing in my doorway looking terrified. Just the smell and the ceiling tiles. White squares with tiny holes. I counted them while trying not to shake. "Have you experienced panic attacks before?" the nurse asked gently. I nodded. "But not like this," I whispered. "What triggered it?" I stared at her. How do you explain that someone saying "I love you" 12 hours earlier and then blocking you everywhere can make your body shut down? He just disappeared. She gave me a sympathetic smile. "Breakup?" I swallowed. It wasn't even a breakup. It was just gone. They monitored my heart for hours. It wasn't a heart attack. It was shock. That's what the doctor called it. Your nervous system reacted to a sudden emotional trauma. Emotional trauma. That felt dramatic, but it also felt accurate. Because this wasn't just sadness, it was disorientation. When I got home the next morning, my apartment felt unfamiliar, like something had been removed from the air. His toothbrush was still in the holder. His hoodie was on the chair. Our grocery list was still in the fridge. Everything looked the same, except I had been deleted. I kept replaying the last message. "I can't do this anymore." What is this? I needed specifics, reasons, something solid, and I clung to the one sentence that followed. "I just need space. We'll have a proper conversation soon." Soon. That word became my anchor. He promised. We were in our 30s. Adults don't just vanish, right? Day one, I didn't panic. I told myself he was overwhelmed. Maybe my anxiety had exhausted him. Maybe he needed to reset. Day three, I started checking my phone every hour. Still blocked. I asked a mutual friend casually, trying to sound unaffected. "Have you talked to him?" "Yeah," she said. "He seemed fine." Fine. That word felt like a slap. Fine. I wasn't fine. I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't eating properly. I was waking up at 3:17 a.m. every night with adrenaline rushing through my chest. But he was fine. One night, against my better judgment, I logged into Instagram from my friend's account. I told myself I just needed to see if he looked devastated. I don't know why that mattered, but it did. He had posted a story at a bar, laughing, music loud, surrounded by people.
He looked lighter, not grieving, not conflicted, relieved. I stared at the screen for too long. My friend gently took the phone from my hand. Don't do this to yourself. But I already had. The next hit came accidentally. Another mutual acquaintance posted a photo from an event 2 weeks before the breakup. He had told me he was too exhausted to go. In the picture, he was standing close to a woman I didn't recognize. His hand was resting on the small of her back. Not casually, not distant, intimate. The kind of touch you don't think about. The kind of touch that's automatic. I zoomed in. My stomach flipped. Had this been happening while he was still telling me he loved me? Was I the only one who didn't know the relationship was ending? The humiliation started setting in. I imagined people knowing before I did. I imagined conversations I wasn't part of. I imagined him detaching slowly while I was trying harder. And then something worse happened. I started blaming myself again. Maybe I pushed him away. Maybe my struggles were too much. Maybe I drained him. He had said once during a small argument, "I can't always carry this." Carry this? Was that how he saw me? As weight? The silence stretched into 2 weeks, then 3. Still no conversation, still blocked. Every day that passed chipped away at my dignity, because the longer he didn't reach out, the more it felt intentional. One evening, I opened our old text thread and scrolled up. There were hundreds of "I love you" messages, photos, plans, jokes, inside language. He had written once, "I'd never just disappear on you. That's cruel." I felt physically sick reading that. Cruel. That's exactly what he had done. I started noticing something uncomfortable. Every time I expressed vulnerability during our relationship, he'd subtly retreat. If I was strong and independent, he leaned in. If I was overwhelmed, he leaned back. It wasn't explosive, it was quiet distancing, and I had mistaken it for mood, not pattern. Around week 4, something shifted inside me. Not strength, not yet, just clarity beginning to flicker. If someone truly loves you, they don't promise a conversation and then let you spiral for a month. They don't watch you break and stay silent. Because here's what he knew. He knew about my anxiety history. He knew how abandonment triggers me. He knew my life was already unstable. And he still chose the most destabilizing exit possible. That's when denial finally started cracking. This wasn't confusion. This wasn't overwhelm. This was avoidance, at my expense. And then, just when I had almost stopped checking, a friend texted me. I ran into him. My chest tightened again. How did he seem? She hesitated. Normal. Normal. That word again. Not guilty. Not remorseful. Normal. I sat on my bed staring at the wall, and for the first time since the hospital, I felt anger. Not explosive anger. Cold anger. Because suddenly it became clear he wasn't struggling to talk to me. He was choosing not to, and that's a very different thing. Still, I waited, because he promised, and part of me needed him to prove that I hadn't meant nothing. But every silent day was its own answer. Week 5 was when the waiting became unbearable. Not because I still believed he was coming back to fix it, but because I needed the promised conversation to make sense of my own sanity. There's something destabilizing about being erased without explanation. It makes you question your memory, your perception, your worth. I kept replaying that morning in my head, his voice, the way he said, "We're okay," the kiss on my forehead. Was it fake? Had he already decided? How do you say, "I love you," knowing you're about to disappear? That question looped in my brain like a glitch. And the silence? It was louder than any argument we'd ever had. My therapist asked me one afternoon, gently, what would a healthy person do if they needed space? They'd communicate, I said immediately. And did he? I swallowed. No. And what does that tell you? I didn't want to answer, because admitting it meant accepting something painful. It told me he didn't have the emotional capacity to handle discomfort. It told me he chose avoidance over accountability. It told me I had been loving someone who folded under pressure. But knowing that didn't stop the ache. I wasn't just grieving him. I was grieving the version of him I thought existed. Around that time, friends started asking questions. Are you sure there wasn't someone else? Did you miss something? The truth was, I didn't know, and that uncertainty felt humiliating. One night, sitting alone in my living room, I realized something terrifying. If I didn't ask for the conversation myself, it might never happen. He had promised, but he clearly wasn't planning to initiate it. So I made a decision that felt like swallowing glass. I would reach out, not by breaking the block, not by begging, but through someone neutral, a familiar who knew both of us. I drafted the message carefully, not emotional, not accusatory, measured. I read it to 3 different friends, edited it 5 times. I didn't want him to feel attacked. I didn't want to sound desperate. I just wanted clarity. This is what I sent. Hey, I know you needed space, and I've respected that. I truly have. But you promised we would have a proper conversation, and I'm asking for that now. Not to fight, not to convince you of anything, just for closure and mental peace. The way things ended was very destabilizing for me, especially given my circumstances at the time. I believe we're both old enough to handle a respectful conversation. I'm open to whatever you need to say. I just don't want silence to be the final word. I even added 1 line of light humor at the end, something we used to joke about, trying to soften it. I pressed send through the mutual contact, and immediately regretted it, because now the waiting wasn't passive anymore. Now it was exposed. Now he knew I wanted to talk. The first 24 hours were agony. Every notification made my heart spike. Every time my phone lit up, my stomach dropped. Nothing. Day 2? Still nothing. And this is the part no one talks about. The humiliation of wanting someone who clearly doesn't prioritize you. The shame of hoping they respond. The quiet voice that whispers, if he cared, he would have already reached out. By day 3, my nervous system felt fried again. But this time, something was different. The anxiety wasn't sharp, it was tired, like my body was done reacting. Late that evening, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. My heart didn't race this time. It just steadied. The message read, I got your message. I don't think talking will change anything. I meant what I said. I needed out. I didn't handle it perfectly, but dragging it out would have been worse. I stared at the screen. That was it? No apology? No acknowledgement of the hospital? No recognition of the destabilization? Just logistics. I needed out. Like I was a meeting he had to cancel. I typed back carefully. You promised a conversation. He replied, I changed my mind. 3 words. That's when something inside me broke. Not in panic, in clarity. He didn't just leave, he minimized. He reduced months of intimacy into inconvenience. And the most shocking part? He truly didn't see the damage. He followed up with, I hope you understand someday. Understand what? That he was overwhelmed? That my anxiety was too much? That loving someone through hardship wasn't something he signed up for? I didn't reply immediately. For the first time since this started, I let the silence sit on my side, and I realized something heavy. He wasn't cruel in the loud way. He was cruel in the detached way, the way that makes you feel foolish for feeling deeply, the way that frames your pain as overreaction. I didn't handle it perfectly. That sentence echoed. Not perfectly? You blocked me. You erased me. You promised closure and then denied it. And still he spoke like it was a minor misstep. That's when the final illusion shattered. He didn't lack awareness. He lacked depth. He didn't leave because I was too much. He left because real love requires endurance, and endurance requires emotional maturity, which he didn't have. That night,
I didn't cry. I didn't spiral. I sat on my couch in silence, and for the first time since the hospital, I felt steady because the waiting was over, not because I got closure, but because I got truth. He wasn't coming back with accountability. He wasn't going to suddenly understand. And strangely, that freed me. The next morning, I woke up and didn't check my phone, not out of pride, out of peace. And in the mirror, I saw something different, not broken, awake. I wasn't discarded because I was unworthy. I was discarded because I was asking for emotional depth from someone who only knew surface level connection. That realization didn't erase the pain, but it removed the shame. And that's when healing actually began.
Months passed. Not quickly, not magically, but steadily. Therapy became my safe place, a space where I could unlearn the self-blame that had taken root, where I could finally say the things I had whispered to the walls at 3 a.m. It wasn't my fault. I didn't do anything wrong. The gym helped, not just for my body, but for my mind. The repetitive movement, the strain, the tangible progress, it grounded me in something real and predictable. For once, results depended on me, not someone else's decisions. I focused on work, applied for jobs I once thought I wasn't ready for. I networked, I interviewed, I aced presentations. Each small win reminded me that I still had control over my life, that I was still competent, still worthy, still capable. And slowly, I started smiling again. Not the half-hearted, I'm fine kind of smile. Real smiles, laughs that felt easy, spontaneous. I was discovering pieces of myself that had been buried under anxiety, confusion, and grief. Then one Tuesday, out of the blue, I got a notification on my phone. He had unblocked me. The message read simply, "Hey, I saw your message. Can we talk?" I stared at it, and for the first time, I felt calm. Not panic, not racing heart, not desperation. Calm. Because I wasn't waiting anymore. I wasn't hoping anymore. I wasn't desperate for validation from someone who had never truly given it. I typed a careful response. "What do you want to talk about?" Minutes later, his reply, "I handled things badly. I was overwhelmed. You were going through a lot. I didn't think I could handle it." Classic. Same old pattern. Responsibility framed around his discomfort, not my pain. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel sadness. I felt indifference. He asked if we could meet. He said he wanted closure. He wanted to explain. I agreed, not for him, but for me. I needed to see it clearly. I needed the physical presence of him to fully anchor the truth. He still didn't understand. When I arrived at the cafe, he was already seated. He looked nervous, awkward, small. I didn't know how to deal with your anxiety," he began. "So you blocked me?" I interrupted calmly. He swallowed. I needed peace. Peace. From the woman who loved him, from the woman who trusted him, from the woman he said he loved that very morning he left. I let the words hang. They were ridiculous. They were insulting. They were perfect proof of the same pattern I had been seeing all along. "I ended up in the hospital because of how you left."